We'll get to JT Crabtree in just a few moments, but you look at what Georgia Southern men's basketball was able to do, a 74-73 victory over UT Arlington on Saturday in overtime. That was, and Brant talked about it just a few minutes ago, that was a really, really good Sun Belt Conference basketball game.
It's what it should be.
Yeah.
It's what it should be. Granted, I'm not going to say everything is going to come down to the final seconds or overtime and going to be a one-possession game, but considering that UTA had won 4 in a row, they were off to a 3-0 start in conference play. The preseason polls did not think much of them, just like the Eagles. They were picked tied for 9th along with Troy, which we'll get to in just a couple of moments. Of course, the Eagles were picked 11th. And very similar to the Little Rock game, Georgia Southern was in good position. They were up double digits. They built a 14-point lead with a little more than 9.5 minutes to play. They were still up by 11 inside of 5 minutes, and then it whittled down to 6. But there was 90 seconds left, and you had to think, make a couple of free throws here and there, keep the game 2-3 possessions, you'd be in good shape. And you had some of your best free throw shooters, some of the best free throw shooters in the conference at the line. Trey Cobbs ended up missing the front end of a 1-and-1, even though he made up for it in overtime. Getty Usapaitis ended up missing the back end of 2 shots and up by 3 in the final seconds. Brant brought it up. Do you foul when you're up 3? Well, a lot of that depends on the situation, home road, underdog favorite. If you want somebody to go to the free throw line, if they're hot from 3, you don't want to give them a chance. In the case of UT Arlington, we knew that they were 28% for the year coming in, and they've struggled from distance these last few years. They were hot that game, though. Even so, the guy...
And it was the ones that you didn't think were going to be hot were the hot.
David Azor was 18%. He goes 5 out of 5 from 3.
Of course he does.
Nicholas Alame was 4 of 15 on the year. He goes 3 of 3. And Javon Levi, who was 4 of 15 himself, hits a 27-footer to tie the game at the end of regulation. And then you get to overtime, you're down by 4. Cobbs takes over a little bit, hits 3 of his 4 field goals in that extra session. And he made one of the smartest plays I've seen this year because he fouled Levi off the ball with 20 seconds left, double bonus. So a guy that was 45% for the year had to shoot 2, missed them both. Kamari rebounds down 1. Cobbs ends up finishing it, put the Eagles back up by 1, had to endure a couple of shots in those final seconds. But that was a really well-played, good atmosphere. It was nice to be back in Hanner for the first time in 3 weeks, and even better for the Eagles to get that first Sun Belt win.
Again, 74-73, the overtime victory over UT Arlington turned the attention back to the road as Georgia Southern will head to the Yellowhammer State. Maybe JT knows why it's called the Yellowhammer State.
I've got mine in the box. Mine's in the box, ready to go.
Really?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not at all.
I was about to say, wow.
No shot.
The first shot is Troy on Thursday. Head over to Trojan Arena in Troy, Alabama. Get to see Barry McKnight. Barry couldn't join us tonight because he has his coach's show over at, I believe, Mama Goldberg's, if I've heard that 1,000 times right.
So he's talking to Scott Cross and Shanda Rigby as they get set for their week. But
Are there any stairs at Mama Goldberg's?
I don't believe so. I think that's a first-floor establishment in lovely Troy. But
so it's not in Atlanta.
We'll talk with JT in a second, but this is going to be a really challenging week for Georgia Southern. These are 2 of the best teams in the league.
And Troy's one that first couple of years under Scott Cross hasn't necessarily been exactly what everybody thought whenever whatever happened at UTA happened. Yep. He moves over to Troy after 1 year elsewhere. The first couple of years weren't exactly what you thought were going to happen, but it looks like Scott Cross finally has the team and the guys that he wants to get rolling with.
Yeah, that first year they won 9 games because he was still dealing with Phil Cunningham's regime. He basically flipped the roster in a year. They didn't improve that much last year, but did get up to 11 wins. They still had trouble shooting. They had trouble defending, despite the fact that we've talked multiple times about those Troy teams. They play so hard for him.
Yeah.
They gut it out for him. They've got a lot of blue-collar guys, would fit in very well at Georgia Southern. If the situation presented itself, it's starting to click for them. They're 12-5. They're 3-1 in the league. They've won 7 of their last 8. That qualifies them as being the hottest team in the league. Feodg's the UTEP transfer down low, a big body at 6'9", 240. He immediately becomes one of the best post players in the league. It's affected Nick Stampley a little bit. Fifth-year senior opted to come back for his COVID year. His numbers are way down, but somebody that's torn up Georgia Southern in his career, as has Zay Williams. Williams didn't play against App on Saturday because of COVID issues. Not sure what his status is going to be for Thursday. But this is a Troy bunch, really deep. They've got 18 players on their roster, one of the biggest rosters I can ever recall seeing. They're not shooting it great. They're shooting it better because they couldn't get much worse last year. Difference for them this year, they're defending. According to Ken Pomeroy, this is the best defensive team that Troy has had since they came to the Sun Belt 17 years ago.
You love you some Ken Pom, don't you?
You got to. You got to. You got to pull out the scalpel. You got to dissect because, he does the hard work for us. We just have to be able to read it.
You just got to read it.
We just got to read all of it. After you pay him, but you just got to be able to read all it. But this Troy team, I don't know if they're as talented as that team in 17 that won the tournament championship when Wesley Person went bonkers down in New Orleans, but this is the deepest team that Troy has had since they've been in the Sun Belt.
There's barely enough room on the paper. Good night. Thursday is Georgia Southern at Troy, 7 o'clock the tip-off, 6:30 the airtime with the Cutwater Spirits. Countdown to tip-off on the Georgia Southern Sports Network. And then on Saturday, make the trip down to Mobile, Alabama to pay a visit to our next friend up on the podcast, JT Crabtree. JT, appreciate you joining us, bud.
I would be remiss if I didn't start this by saying Link Kabajundi.
Oh, you're a treasure.
He looks like he's about to get drafted for the NFL in his living room.
Where's the party?
That, but yeah, I guess I am. I'm usually at my office doing these, but I have a puppy now, and so I had to come home and take him out. So welcome to my living room, boys.
I love it.
How's the pup?
Good. 14 weeks old now. You will likely hear him bark in the background. You'll actually probably see my cat at some point walk over the top of the couch over my shoulders here in a bit. It's
Wait, so you've got a dog and a cat?
Yeah, they don't get along either. So it's been a joy.
The dog's name is Pepper.
Dog is Pepper. Cat is Annabelle. The dog's he's fun. I haven't had a dog in a long time. I haven't had a puppy since I was, probably like 10 years old. So it's an adjustment. It's a lot different from, taking care of it yourself than just, hey, mom and dad, here, go take care of it for me. So it's a lot different.
Yeah, I can't imagine Kimberly would be too happy about that.
No, probably not.
Take us into the South Alabama team, 10-5 on the season, but have started 0-2 in conference play. And you've only played Thursday games up to this point. Both of the Saturday games have been postponed. You fall against UTA in the opening series of Sun Belt Conference play, 89-87 out in Arlington. You're on your way to San Marcos. That one gets banged. You have to hang a right in Waco and head back to Mobile. Then you host Appalachian State last week. Fall 72-64 to the Mountaineers. And then Coastal Carolina gets canceled.
Directionally challenged is fine.
Yeah, it's whatever. Hold up the L's, which never mind.
It's Central Time, so he's all off.
Yeah, I don't know what day it is. I'm glad I said Thursday. But this week is a big week for South Alabama because Thursday you've got a nationally televised game, ESPN2, coming in for South Alabama against Georgia State, one that, depending on what Georgia State looks like COVID-wise, hopefully that one gets played for your guys' sake down in the Mitchell Center. But what does this team really look like the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, they've, on paper, uber talented. I could argue the most talented roster in the Sun Belt Conference. They just haven't been able to put together a full 40 minutes yet. And we've seen that a lot with Richie Riley teams so far in his tenure is, he'll bring in a lot of transfer guys, and talent-wise on paper, they look great, but they take a little while to gel. I think that this team is, I know this team is more together and a lot more gelled than the teams in the past. It's just when the offense is clicking, the defense isn't clicking, and vice versa a lot of nights. That was what happened at UTA was, the offense was fine, but the defense wasn't stopping anybody. And, you give up 30 points to Azor, and Alame hits a 3 to tie it in overtime, and it was right after we had just hit a 3, and we're feeling good, and then a dude shooting 19% for his career on threes turns around and hits one the other way. Just, it's been that kind of year so far in conference play. And then you mentioned we haven't played on a Saturday yet, which has been just bizarre. We were in Waco. We were headed to San Marcos 2 Thursdays ago, and we turned left, and we were just kind of like, I guess we're not playing. And then last week, we get to the arena, and we had heard that we had a COVID outbreak here or there. It wasn't too bad. And, you get on the court for the 50-minute warm-up, and there's 7 guys out there. And I asked our associate head coach, Adam Howard, is this all we got? And he said, we got 7. We're going to play. This is what we're going to go with. And really, yes, we had 7 guys rested out, but we really honestly had 6 guys playing because Adam Sizemore was the 7th man. And it's not a discredit to him of, he's the last guy that didn't play, and he was the only guy dressed out that didn't play. It was he himself had been cleared from COVID protocol that day. He hadn't practiced in like 3 weeks, and so he wasn't physically ready to play in a ball game, and he hasn't played meaningful minutes for us, honestly, since high school. He's the fan favorite, the guy that comes in late in the game when it's going one way or the other and hopes that you chuck up a 3 and make it. And so we were looking to, we might see some meaningful minutes from him. We didn't. We ended up turning around on Friday last week and having to cancel our Saturday game. So now we've got Georgia State coming to town for that nationally televised game you mentioned. Late start, 9 o'clock for you guys and 8 o'clock for us. But it'll be some good exposure. ESPN2 is nice. We've already been talking with their producers. Seem like nice folks. So looking forward to having the national spotlight in town.
You brought it up already with Richie's teams. He loves that transfer portal, and it almost takes away his ability to have tendencies because some years you sit in a 2-3 with a press, other years it's a man-to-man, you run a different offense with ball screens. How challenging is that trying to get used to basically a new team every year?
Yeah, it's tough. And honestly, last game against App State, when we had those 6 guys, we've played some zone, we've played man, we've played mostly man this year. And we started man-to-man. It wasn't working. We switched to 2-3 zone, and we did that the end of the 1920 season before the pandemic. We were doing 2-3 zone with pack line elements, and it worked. And we switched back and forth. Early in the game, we went 2-3 zone. We went box and 1. We went triangle and 2. We were changing it every single possession. It was giving App State fits, but at the same time, Joe McNulty, my color analyst, we're looking, okay, Deontay's got, who's he got? Oh, well, what's JJ doing over there? Oh, it's triangle and 2 now. Okay. It's interesting because it's keeping us on our toes. Something that I hadn't really thought about last year because of the pandemic, we didn't play on the other side of the division. Josh Sowers at UTA said, I don't know a single one of your guys. I haven't seen a single one of your players before. And I thought, okay, surely you've seen Kaio. No, you haven't seen anybody because we've turned the roster over so much in the last 2 years. It's tough. It's tough personally because, guys like KK Curry I got to know a little bit. John Petway I knew really well, and both those guys transferred out. And then you've got this new crop of guys, and it's like, all right, let's hit the reset button. Let's get to know these guys all over again. They're a fun group, and so I'm hoping they can get it going sooner rather than later because they are really fun. They're a lot of fun to be around.
Couple of guys in that new group for you. Charles Manning Jr., 17 points a game. Missed the Tarleton game a couple of weeks ago. You've got J.J. Chandler at 15 points a game. A couple of guys that really at the top of this offense have been a big part of it.
Yeah, it's we had heard early on because Charles joined the team last year and had to sit out as a mid-year transfer. But we had heard what he could do. But obviously he had foot surgery when he arrived, so we didn't see it for a while. And then the offseason, the summer rolls around, and we start to hear, this guy can score, this guy can play.
Yeah.
So, all right, you're playing against yourself, so, okay, yeah, you're supposed to be good and whatnot. And we had heard some good things about J.J. Chandler as well. And obviously he played pretty stout minutes at Texas A&M in his career, though. So, okay, you're bringing some high-level experience to the program from a big-time program as well. We're pretty excited about that. And the first thing that stood out to me about J.J. Chandler is just how fast the guy is. He can get up and down the floor so well. He can really athletic. He's not really he's not a point guard. He really is a true 2. He loves to shoot it, loves the mid-range game as well. He's kind of been forced into a 3-point role because the injuries to Turbo Jones and Greg Parham so far this year. So JJ stepped it up from 3-point range, and Chuck's the real deal. Charles Manning's the real deal, man. He's expressive. He's got a couple of technicals to his credit this year, and Richie Riley loves to give him a hard time of, hey, can you dunk the ball without getting the tee? And it's just the back and forth those guys have. And I'll throw Javon Franklin in there as well, an Auburn transfer. He's uber athletic. He's just a guy that's been looking for an opportunity in his career. He went JUCO to start out, went to Holmes Community College, went to Auburn and was playing behind some big name guys at Auburn. Just didn't get an opportunity and came to us and said, I just want a shot. Just let me show what I can do. And at 6'7", 220, he runs the floor, plays great defense. He's brutal on the boards, especially on the offensive side. Not having him against App State, I think, was the big one that hurt. If we had him and had just some guy, some interior defender to slow down Lewis Jr. and the other guys down there that like to bump bodies for App State, I think that game would have turned out a little bit different. But they're fun. Charles Manning Jr. and JJ are easily the top two guys. The way we go is typically based on what they're doing every single night.
You guys had an 8-game winning streak in the non-conference, but I want to ask you about a loss to Alabama because it seemed like you were every bit Alabama's equal for that entire game. What was that experience like at Coleman?
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And, Alabama, doing what they did last year and Auburn doing what they did the year before. And now we've played Auburn and Alabama each of the last 2 years. And so this deal starts a 2-for-1. They'll come to us next year, Alabama will. And, it was a chance to match up and say, all right, here we go. You guys have basketball up there and you're good, but we're pretty darn good down here on the coast too. And so it was an opportunity for us to show what we've got with our roster. And you mentioned it. We played pretty even with them. Aside from, Kaio didn't have a great offensive game that day, but he was great defensively. Charles Manning Jr. Had his usual game. J.J. Chandler got in really early foul trouble, so he didn't play a lot in that first half of that one. But, I think that was just a shot in the arm of the Saturday before even. We played Alabama on a Tuesday, and we played at Wichita the previous Saturday, and they hung with them too. And it was kind of like, okay, we might have something here. And the Wichita game was where Turbo Jones broke his foot, and so we turned around and played at Alabama without Turbo for the first time, and we didn't have a point guard on the roster. We still don't right now. And so it was, who's going to run the offense? Manning, you try it. JJ, you try it. Alex Anderson mixed in there a lot early on as the point guard as well. Just trying to find some different guys that worked at the point guard position. It was a great feeling. It's one of those games where, it's not a moral victory, but you feel pretty good leaving the arena, and feeling the way you did after that and knowing they're going to come back to us next year is a nice shot in the arm of confidence.
You talked about Turbo Jones having the broken foot the last couple of weeks since Wichita State, and it's been talked about he may be back this week, it may be next week. You're hoping to get him back hopefully this week. What does that do if he is able to come back against Georgia Southern and Georgia State this week?
Yeah, he's a true point guard. He's a true facilitator to the offense. He is pass first, shoot later. And his speed, the nickname Turbo, my God, he's got to be fast, right?
Hey, you don't give a slow guy that nickname.
Right. He's fast, man. He is fast. Now, he is a little undersized at 6'1", 180. But that's not gonna stop him. The dude plays with such tenacity. He's in your face all the time defensively. He can run up on you, and his hands are just throwing everywhere. And he's a great player. We've really missed him. And he's another guy just like Javon, who he was at Auburn. He was playing behind Sharif Cooper. He just couldn't find a spot. He couldn't find minutes at Auburn. Won an opportunity. And actually our associate head coach, Adam Howard, had a previous connection with him when Coach Howard was at Troy. They had recruited him there, didn't get him. Turbo went in the portal, and so they already had that pre-existing relationship. So Turbo comes down to us. We got a chance to see him last year because he was a mid-year transfer, and he was impressive. He practiced against the guys, and they were impressed. It's really, really slowed down what we want to do offensively so far this year because, like I said before, there's no true point guard, and Charles Manning Jr. is doing his best to run the offense, and he's done a pretty good job. But that's not what he's built for. He's a true two guard, and he wants to score all the time. And so when Turbo gets back either this week or next week, I mean, he's been out of the boot and off the scooter for a couple of weeks. When we were at UTA, he was shooting around a bunch, so he feels good. When he gets back, I think we'll really see this team start to look like what we expected them to preseason.
All right, with us sitting in Georgia, you sitting in the state of Alabama, I feel like we have to ask the question, who you got tonight in the Natty?
I just hope everyone has fun and they both lose.
That's the best answer to that question I've ever heard.
I feel like if he asked us that, we would have said the same thing.
Yeah, probably. Probably. That's fantastic.
We've all been kind of sitting around, and it's like, all right, who do you want to win? And for the state's sake, we're kind of like, okay, Alabama, keep it in the state lines, whatever. But I honestly, the feeling a lot of people have around here is that please don't let Georgia win, because Alabama fans are obnoxious enough as is. We don't need another fan base to be obnoxious winning a national championship. So just let Alabama have it like they always do, and we'll move forward.
Everybody have fun and both lose. That's fantastic. JT, appreciate the time. Hopefully, Danny gets down to come and see you this weekend.
I will do the best that I can.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had a Saturday game. Like, I'm getting spoiled right now. Like, I have weekends off. I'm like, what do I do? And I guess I'll watch the Sun Belt.
JT, appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it, guys. I'll see y'all.
Once again, JT Crabtree. Again,
that's a rock star edition, isn't it?
Oh, no doubt. This might be the best edition of Inside Eagle Nation we've ever had. Some of the best lines, too.
I feel like we got to talk about the game a little bit, very briefly at the end of this.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Not yet, but
yeah, no,
we
we'll
got to
get
give
there.
our 2 cents.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know if people want my 2 cents, but
all right, penny for your thoughts then.
Just one?
Just one.
Wow. All right. Men's basketball will have the Thursday matchup against the Trojans of Troy, 7 p.m. the tip-off. And then 5 o'clock inside the Mitchell Center against the South Alabama Jaguars on Saturday. We'll be on the air 4:30 on Saturday, 6:30 on Thursday for both of those matchups.
You know, he mentioned about Manning and Franklin and Chandler. I've watched South play twice. I haven't seen a lot of our teams play yet because not seeing the West, and I still equate it with the West, even though we're back as 12 teams in one league now. I think Charles Manning's the best player in the league.
See, I've actually seen South Alabama because a couple of weeks ago I was in Mobile for the Mobile Bowl.
Yeah.
And the Friday night before, they were playing their second of the home and home against Tarleton. And I actually called it for JT from their studios over at the iHeart Studios with Joe McNulty, who is fantastic, by the way.
He's a stud.
Oh, I love Joe.
He's a stud.
I didn't get a bang in, but I was kind of ticked about that. Got to let him have that.
Yeah,
Between him and Steve Holman, they got it.
And Mike Breen.
Yeah. But it was the game that he didn't play.
Of course.
So I can't help you out.
Having watched him a couple times, I don't need to see anybody else in the league. I think he's the best player in the league. Yeah. And that's what Georgia Southern is potentially going to have to contend with. But like what happened to South last year, if they would have been fully healthy at any point last year, South would have run away with the league. They had that much talent. But when you deal with the transfer portal as much as Richie Riley does, it can work. But if it doesn't, you're just trying to scrape to get by. You had Friday, Saturday last year in the league. He played most of the year with 6 guys.
Yeah.
Because of those issues. Now, you had Michael Flowers, who was leading the league in scoring, and he was as awesome a scorer as I've seen in this league since I got here 7 years ago, but he decided he wanted to test the waters in the Pac-12, so he transferred to Washington State. It's a whole new team again, like what was last year. You have Caio Gonzalez as the holdover. He made more than 83s last year, second in the league, only to Flowers.
He's really good.
He is really good. One of the best shooters, despite 6'9", 240. He knows his game. He plays to his game. And from what JT has talked about, he's really improved his defense as well. But this year, it's happened again.
Yeah.
When they're at full strength, I think that they're the best team in the league. And I know we've only seen a couple of teams. I know we're only 2 weekends in. If that South team, even if they get Turbo Jones back, that increases their chances of winning this league exponentially. As it is, they had to play 6 guys last Saturday. App wore them down because they had no front court depth, and then not even being able to put a team together to play Coastal. So no idea what South is going to look like, and I don't know what Georgia Southern is going to look like. You'd like to think that Elijah McCadden is going to come back from COVID, but where he is in the protocol, if he's able to make the trip to Alabama, we'll get there on Thursday. But with as well as Troy is playing and as well as South can play, this is an important weekend, just 3 weekends in a conference play.